Before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that I am redoing my Understanding Your Child and Teens Behavior mini course. I am so freaking excited. Understanding your child's behavior is a passion of mine. It's something that I discovered early on in my mothering and something that I began to be noticed for in my social work career. Is truly seeing and understanding children's behavior on a deeper emotional level without reacting to it. There are so many parenting books out there, and where I find myself is in this sweet spot of being in it with my 3 boys who are now 17, 13, and 10. So if you're interested in joining us for Understanding Your Child's Behavior, head on over to Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com/parenting. This is not just about you managing your own big emotions or seeing and understanding your child's behavior. This is about the action and practicality. Parenting is a lifelong relationship. There are no quick fixes. There are no 6-step strategies to whatever, all your problems going away. This is really about understanding emotional behavior on a deeper level. Because I truly believe when you become empowered and understand what is truly going on in your child's brain and also their emotional well-being, you can show up with more confidence to know exactly what to do, how to manage your own expectations and also manage the expectations that we inevitably project onto our children. So if you're a parent who buys all the parenting books, you read it all, but you're interested in what those tips or strategies that you can actually implement in your life, I have broken this down into a 5-part mini series and some additional bonus content where not only you can learn to manage your big emotions and be present for your children, but you will also understand what is going on in your child's world. We don't need to do the work for our children. We need to understand that they are their own human, having their own human experience. And we are having our own human experience. And parenting is the co-creation and a relationship. Whether it's anxiety, ADD, ADHD, beyond all of this, your child is a soul having a human experience, and they are worthy of being seen, heard, and understood. And so are you. So if you're interested, head on over to Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com/parenting. And check out the Understanding Your Child and Teens Behavior mini course. Today, I'm going to talk about community. I'm not talking about people in a group. I'm talking about how to cultivate actual community for yourself. Every single time I'm talking to a woman, I hear so many stories about not feeling like we belong. But what I don't think people realize is it's not necessarily about the people we're surrounding ourselves with, but it's more about the stories we tell ourselves inside of community. And today you're going to hear a story from Alexis Dean. And Alexis has become a near and dear friend of mine. She is the founder of a community named Dovetail. I want you to go follow them on Instagram. It's Dovetail, like DOVE tail.community. So you can find them at dovetail.community. Link in bio, all the things. And you can go find them at dovetail.community. And the reason why I wanted to share Alexis today is because she has a really unique way of creating communities. So she creates communities for female founders, 7, 8, 9-figure founders. But she's unique in the way that she does it. She doesn't just bring people together who can pay to be in the room. She brings people together based on values and how they show up in the world and how they see the world. And I think this is how we're going to make a bigger impact. There's 5 things that she talks about in today's conversation, and I'm going to go over them quickly with you. The first is knowing yourself. This is everything that I talk about, which is, who are you? What do you want? How do you want to feel? What do you think? What do you believe? And I think it's incredibly important for us to understand who we are even outside of community, because when you start putting yourself inside of community or inside of groups, you have this strong sense of self. And when you have a strong sense of self, you can then contribute to this bigger sense of community. But we need to start intentionally creating community. This is not just about, again, creating a meetup. This is about specifically curating the people that you want to learn from. Number 2, belong to yourself. It's okay to know yourself, but who are you? What are your desires? What do you want? When we start to belong to ourselves, we start to find our own identity. This is something that I talk a lot about inside of my own community and my own groups. But something that I think is really, really important is when we belong to ourselves, we can give more to others. Again, such an important factor when we are inside of community. Who am I and who is this community? I think about that a lot. Like in my house, I have 3 boys in this house, my husband, 2 dogs, my mother is here. Who am I? Right? Who am I? What is my contributing factor as part of this community? Number 3, courageously engage. This is the one that I always find interesting. We put ourselves in community and then we expect people to show up for us. It's a privilege to be in groups and communities. And I really encourage you that wherever you are in your life and whatever groups or communities you're in and the stories that you're telling yourself, I want you to courageously engage. I want you to reach out to people, have conversations, invite them to things, phone conversations, Zooms, coffee chats. Who are you? What is it that you crave? Do things and put yourself in rooms that you actually don't believe you belong in. Number 4, inclusion. Be decisively inclusive. Be decisively inclusive. Make decisions about who you want to surround yourself with, what you will tolerate and what you will no longer tolerate. This is what I love about Alexis and her community is she purposely puts people in the room that have shared values, honesty, integrity, respect. But then she puts people in the room where you don't carry the same beliefs. Values and beliefs are vastly different. You and I can have different beliefs, but if we both value each other, we will learn to respect each other. So number 4, be decisively inclusive. Know what you want, know who you want to surround yourself with, and stop tolerating the bullshit. And number 5, surrender and detach. Let go of the expectations. Just show up to the conversation. You might grow. You might learn something. So I'm really excited for you to hear Alexis's story and go follow her. Like I said, at Instagram at dovetail.community, send her a private message over there at on her community Instagram and let her know you listened to this conversation. She is a founder She is a magical unicorn. And I am so freaking grateful that I manifested this woman in my life. I've gone on multiple trips with her. I've met amazing women through her. And what I love about Alexis is this goes above and beyond being a business owner. This goes above and beyond being a woman. This is about being a soul, having a human experience. So let's dive in. 5 intentional ways to build the community that we need. Alexis Dean launched Dovetail team building and training in January of 2015 after spending 10 years working as a facilitator, a trainer, and an educator in 21 countries with more than 100 corporate teams and school facilities. Alexis's team hosts private trainings and retreats for well-known companies, including Rogers, RBC, BMO, and many more. In 2017, Alexis saw a need to create more opportunities for community building, masterminding, and collaboration amongst high-performing female entrepreneurs. She combined her experience as a facilitator with her passion for planning and hosting entrepreneur events, and the Dovetail Summit was born. Alexis is proud to work with an incredible team of support staff, plus the amazing crew that helps Dovetail base camps, summit and dinners, pop-up events, and year-round online mastermind communities come to life. You can check them out on Instagram at dovetail.community. And here she is.
As we drove through the gates to the summer camp, under the big sign that said Tech Camp through the tree-lined road, I was giddy with excitement. I was finally here. There was a lineup of cars ahead of us that was filled with people who I thought were just like me. Entrepreneurs from across the country coming together for a weekend at Tech Founders Camp, or TFC, which is not the real name, but we'll call it that for the sake of the story. I was so excited to not only be attending this event, but leading an activity that was designed to bring people together for deeper connections, conversations, and what I thought would be community building. When I met the founders of this event and they told me they were hosting a retreat meets conference for founders of tech companies and a handful of founders whose businesses supported them, like me, I pitched them on bringing me in as a facilitator to help to bring their participants together. My corporate team building and training business was 3 years old. It was finally taking off, and we'd grown to running team building events and training programs for tech companies, Fortune 100s, and banks. And I saw this Tech Founders Camp as a great opportunity to not only grow my business, but to start to build the deep, real connections that I was craving as a founder. Entrepreneurship is really lonely, even when you have a team. And sometimes even more so when you have a team, because you can't just turn to them and pour your heart out and burden them with stresses that you feel when you're the one who's responsible for everyone's livelihoods. So I thought that this event would be the cure to what ailed me, and then some. And I dove headfirst and heart first into it. But from the moment I signed into the event, I began to see that it was not what I thought it would be. I was crestfallen when I realized how few women were there, and that most of the women that I met were not even entrepreneurs. They were wonderful, but they were there to support the men who ran their businesses. And I was even more disappointed when I saw that all the women speakers were relegated to this woman's stage, which was off in the backwoods. They didn't even say what these women were talking about. It was just a woman's stage. And the weekend was just a massive disappointment. And I enjoyed some of the sessions, specifically on that woman's stage. And I enjoyed the session that I ran. And I was lucky to connect with a handful of amazing women entrepreneurs that I did relate to. My overwhelming feeling was just of disconnect. It felt like the whole weekend was focused on partying and posturing and performative behavior. There was a lot of macho chest beating and talking about how many millions they'd raised and how big of an exit they'd had or thought they were going to have. It was exactly the opposite of what I wanted and what I most needed. And to make matters worse, I heard rumors about one of the headline speakers and attendees sexually harassing women. And unfortunately, I experienced it firsthand at the end of the event and in the weeks afterwards. And when I brought my story to the attention of the founders, I was dismissed and the situation was ignored. And this man was brought back to that event and to many other events as a headline speaker and a major draw. So needless to say, I didn't find my people at this tech founders camp. They might have been big time, so-called successful entrepreneurs, billionaires, future billionaires, but none of that really mattered because it wasn't a place where I could find belonging, community, deep connection, or the real conversations that I had been craving. And then since I had spent much of my life seeking community and then building communities in my work around the world, and then in my team building and training business, I turned around and decided to launch my own gathering, an event that eventually became Dovetail Summit and now the Dovetail Community Membership. And there are a few steps that I took before putting together my own community, and I've been asked a lot about them. And so I've narrowed them down into 5 ways to intentionally build the relationships and the community that we all need. So the first is to know yourself. It sounds really easy, but it's not. And by know yourself, I mean to get to know the person behind the titles and the masks that we all wear. Behind the title of mom or entrepreneur or CEO or manager or sister, daughter, athlete, etc. The people who I know that are most deeply connected to others are those who are able to share their gifts and support others because they deeply know and trust their own unique voices. So the second step is to belong to yourself. And this doesn't mean isolating yourself or thinking that you're superior to anyone or feeling that you're more self-realized or more sophisticated than anyone else. You've ever heard of Ram Dass? He's a philosopher and a really great role model of balance. And he constantly joked about being enlightened and yet still losing his keys and getting frustrated with his kids. And so when I say belong to yourself, what I mean is feeling that kind of deep connection to who you really are at your core. Deep acceptance of what you really want, not what your family wants or your husband wants or your partner wants, not what your business partner wants, not what your friend wants, not what Heather wants, and definitely not what the world wants for you. I'm talking about absolute and exclusive ownership of your own autonomy, deep self-embracing, self-trust, and self-appreciation. The third would be to courageously engage. Lots of so-called tribes or communities today are built around a charismatic leader who everyone follows. And it's a kind of lopsided dynamic that exists in a dictatorship. This might be controversial, but it's the kind of dynamic that can exist in platforms and cults and not necessarily in communities. A community is interactive and it's built on genuine give and take connection. In other words, communion, which the Oxford Dictionary defines the word communion as the sharing or exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially when the exchange is on a mental or a spiritual level. The 3 keywords there are sharing, exchanging, and intimate. Now, the challenge with this step is that sometimes really amazing women cross our paths and we can get a little starstruck or intimidated, and we can be tempted to diminish the value of our own contribution. And as an example, although Dovetail is primarily made up of 7 and some 6-figure business owners, we also have a 10-figure founder who has started and is now running a $1 billion business. And she's incredibly warm, wildly generous, and highly active in the membership. And I don't know about you, but have you ever met a woman that was so amazing you almost didn't feel worthy of being in the same conversation with them? And we know that's happening when we catch ourselves saying things like, I'm sure there are other people here that you should talk to, or you're way more experienced and together than me, or I don't want to take up any more of your time. Have you ever caught yourself playing small like that? So if so, I'd like to remind you of 3 things that you probably already know, but you may have forgotten. One is that we all have room to grow, whether we have a $1 billion business or a new business that hasn't made $10 yet. That you have gifts. The second is that you have gifts that you're uniquely qualified to share with the most amazing woman in the room. And the third is that you are worthy of connection. The fourth step to building community and making those connections is to be exclusively inclusive. Have you ever been lost in a relationship before, where you get so enamored with the other person that you become almost a counterfeit representation of yourself, hoping that they'll approve of this engineered, customized, altered version of you? The same thing can happen with connections and communities. So how do we harmonize these seemingly opposed objectives? The answer is that you need to be exclusively inclusive. You need to exclude people who don't share your values, and you need to include people who don't share the same perspectives as you. For example, in Dovetail, we are diamond clear on the kind of people that we want to include and the values that we share in common. Things like being humble and not taking ourselves too seriously, a willingness to fully engage with others in the community, a willingness to be vulnerable in the presence of psychological safety, and commitment to giving back to others and the world in some way, among other things. And if someone doesn't share these values, that's cool. We wish them the best, but we also exclude them from the community. And my challenge for you is to do the same. Become a connoisseur of the paradoxical distinction that being exclusively inclusive brings. And then, if someone doesn't share your values, release them with love and light. And if someone doesn't share your perspectives, embrace them and create space to hear them out. And the last step is to surrender and detach. When was the last time you let go of control in a relationship? When's the last time you abandoned a label, maybe one that you have previously held close to your heart? And when is the last time that you let go of expectations? That's what I mean by surrender. Life-changing connection and community requires space to unfold into magic. And the only way that it's going to get to that space is if you make some room for it. It's very close to the idea of detachment, but I resist detachment because I had a boyfriend a few years ago that used to use detachment as an excuse for being emotionally unavailable and generally a really selfish partner. And that's not what I mean by detachment. What I do mean is allowing yourself to step out into the unknown on purpose, intentionally, having faith that growth and transformation is on the other side of the comfort you're leaving behind. So when is the last time you did something that scared you or let go? Lastly, I'll leave you with this. Community isn't something that you get. It's something that you do. It is a verb and not a noun. And nothing builds community like sharing vulnerability, sometimes scary moments of vulnerability, on the bleeding edge of growth. So those are my 5 steps to creating life-changing relationships and an intimate community for yourself, where trust, growth, and safety thrive.
Thank you. You get secretly creeped out, mildly terrified of the possibility. Imagine this, jumping into and hanging out in 3-degree Fahrenheit water. Why not? Well, I started doing this for shits and giggles. Yes, I started a deliberate practice of cold plunging on a daily basis, or cold therapy, or whatever the heck you want to call it. I have partnered with Culture, COLDTURE, and they delivered a cold plunge tub to my house. So I started doing this on a daily basis. And I said, if you want me to advertise your cold plunge tub, I have to actually use it myself because I need to practice what I preach. And I'm going to give honest feedback. So you can definitely check out episode 998, where my husband and I talk about our cold plunging experience. But if you've been on the fence of purchasing your own cold plunge tub and you're ready to dive in, why not do that during the holiday season? So if you head on over to Culture, COLDTURE, and purchase a tub or one of their little filtration systems, you can use the promo code Heather, HEATHER, and get $600 off. You heard me right, $600 off. That goes until December 1st, 2022. And I believe if you use the promo code after December 1st, you can get $250 off. Cold plunging has been an absolute mental game changer. I am not kidding when I say that. It is so incredibly emotionally uncomfortable. I hate it every single time. And I'm so fucking proud of myself every time I get out and I feel good all day. Culture, COLDTURE.com. Use the promo code Heather, $600 off. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Before December 1st.